in your life.
Hey, welcome everybody to Your Healthy Self, and we'll let people slowly come in. We've got a very special guest today, a friend of mine, Dr. Pedram Shojai, and I'm so excited to introduce you all to him. And I hope everyone's just having a phenomenal day. Pedram, it's great to have you here. You're up in Deer Valley right now, up in Park City, and so appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us.
Happy to. Nice to be here.
And Pedram, for those of you who don't know, he is considered the urban monk. He is a doctor of Oriental medicine. He did write the best-selling New York Times best-selling book, The Urban Monk. He's a movie creator. He's also somebody who has been an inspiration in so many people's lives because he is a Taoist monk as well. And he's going to be speaking to us today about some ways of maintaining focus and grounding. And I think he'll show you guys some incredible ways of activating some new vitality and some new ways of thinking about life. So Pedram, good to have you here.
Hey, nice to be here. Nice to be here. It's wonderful being able to enjoy conversations and have kind of rational downloads that aren't bite-sized. You know, I'm so happy to just be able to have long-form conversations instead of short little media stuff where it's like, what are the 3 things that'll change your life today? It's like, it's not how life works, but okay.
Well, let's do that. Yeah, right. Give me the 5. No,
give me the 3 things that I need to take away right now, and then stop listening. And that's the problem. Is everyone wants to do a roll up into a meme, and no one wants to understand what it takes for themselves to have to step in and activate the real change needed in their lives. It's like, everyone's looking outside themselves for the solutions. It's not how it works, man. You gotta do it yourself.
Well, I mean, I think we're all looking outside of ourselves, election season right now, and everyone's like, oh, if this person doesn't get elected, what's going to happen to my identity and what's going to happen to me? Or if that person gets elected, I'm leaving. And so what do you make of all the distractions going on with the political scene right now?
I mean, depending on how Arizona and Georgia and a couple of things that are outside of our hands go down, half the population of this country is going to believe there is a God, and the other half is going to feel slighted. It's painful, man. It's just like, I don't understand how everyone thinks that either God's on their side or not, and how one circumstance is going to determine. And I was having this conversation with my wife. I'm like, look, our life isn't going to be any really that much different than it was in the last 4 years, regardless of what our perception of this outcome is going to be. So, I mean, how much does this really affect you, right? And it does affect a lot of people. And there's a lot of things on the ballot, a lot of crazy things happening in the world right now. So I don't want to diminish that. But at the end of the day, it's like, we're homeschooling our children. I'm writing books and making films. And, every day I get up and get back at it. Right. And so what do you're out there seeing patients every day. So at the end of the day, sick people are going to show up at your door, and you're going to have to take care of them. And the sick people have to learn to take care of themselves, because you can't fix their lifestyle problems. And so, how much does life actually change? How much does this make us step up and have to, be accountable for our own reaction to all the stressors out there? I think that's the real wake-up call is, great, we have more voters, and, yes, we have to be more personally accountable to ourselves and our communities, because the mess that is Washington, the mess that is, the politics that we live around, has shown us one thing, is that, chaos will prevail unless stillness and sanity live here, right?
Yeah. And how did you discover this? I mean, you've done some deep work in understanding who you are as a human being, and you've been outspoken about the distractions that go on amongst us, and how maybe we all just need to sit down next to a tree and clear our minds instead of trying to focus on what the next thing is. So how did you get to this place?
Well, I mean, if you think about what the currency of the information age is, it's your attention, right? And the longer you can get your eyeballs stuck in some feed or some rabbit hole of, some conspiracy or some weird thing that is out there right now, the longer someone is monetizing your eyeballs and your attention. So in the information age, your focus and your attention is being drawn out of you. And, in Chinese medicine, that's the Shen, or the spirit.
Yeah.
And so, and the Buddha called, Buddha called us all hungry ghosts, walking around with our attention pulled out of our own bodies, our consciousness being pilfered or mined out of our own minds and into these devices and into these feeds. And no wonder the world looks like what it looks like, right? If your focus can't be on your own life, if you're not watering your own plants in your own life garden, then where's that water going? Well, it's going into hatching an egg or manifesting a dream of someone else, right? Someone who is driving the media, someone who wants you to help create the reality they want to see instead of the reality you said you wanted to see, right? And so, look, I've got a lot of books out. I do a lot of films. I do a lot of stuff. I had no business sitting down and writing another book, except for the fact that it needed to be written. And, I think that there's a crisis of consciousness right now. And if we don't step up and step back in, we're just being told how to think, how to vote, how to spend, who to be, and how to feel about the world. I mean, that's not our God-given creative principle. That's being taken away from us because we're falling asleep and being lulled into all this crap.
Well, and the amount of censorship, if you have any dissenting opinion of the mainstream narrative, then nowadays it just gets censored. It's just removed.
Yeah.
And so it's been an interesting thing. I ran into Patrick Gentempo, about a month ago in Park City, and he's like, "Yeah, all my stuff is getting taken down." So he's fighting hard to just get some truth out there. So very interesting times that we're in. So your new book is Focus is Like a Muscle. So I love that.
It's everyone says, "Oh, well, I can't meditate because it's hard." It's like, well, I can't, do pull-ups because they're hard. How do you get better at pull-ups? You do pull-ups, right? You strengthen yourself until you get good at the thing that you say you're not good at. And focus and attention are the same thing. They are like a muscle. If you don't do the things that help power up your prefrontal cortex, and we could geek out about what that is and how that works and all the, genetic switches and all that. If you're not doing the work to activate the part of your brain that allows for you to have higher moral reasoning, rational thought, and negation of impulses, and then you say you're bad at those things, well, shame on you, right? It's like saying, well, I can't do pull-ups. Well, practice doing pull-ups. Do assisted pull-ups until you can do pull-ups, right? It's just one example. But we live in a culture where we are so used to being sold sugar cereal as children that we just assume that things should be easy, yet our lives are hard, and we're not willing to do the work to make life easier. Yet we are living in a life where everything is hard and everything sucks. And it's a logical fallacy. And I think it's the crisis of our time is we're waiting for someone to fix us. We're waiting for an easy solution. And what if the answer was, well, you got to work on getting your focus back. You have to work on your brain. You have to work on your habits. You have to work on your life, right? Like I'm a tough love kind of guy. I mean, the literal translation of Kung Fu is hard work, or in Chinese, eat bitter, right? What does that mean?
Right.
What does that mean? That means life is hard work. So when I ask another martial artist, hey, how's your Kung Fu? I'm not asking them how many guys they beat up that week. I'm asking them how they're managing the interface of life and how they're either on their toes and forward or back on their heels and stumbling. Right. And most people are back on their heels and stumbling, begging for someone to come help them, waiting for the next haymaker to come instead of being ready. Right.
Yeah.
And being ready is where we need to be. You want to master life, you got to be up in an athletic stance, up on your feet, metaphorically, with the right part of your brain powered up so that you can make better decisions for your life. And you could say no to the dumb things that come up that distract you from what's important in your life. right? Like Regan and I were supposed to go to the gym and then, go to a salad bar and have some salad and then go home and see our families. That was our plan. A couple of our buddies come up and say, hey, so-and-so's in town. Let's get some drinks.
Right.
Instinctively, we say yes. What is that? That's tequila and nachos and buffalo wings and a late night and a bunch of extra coffee in the morning. That's saying no to the workout. That's saying no to the healthy dinner. That's saying no to our families by saying yes to something new.
Right.
Is it worth it? Maybe sometimes yes, right? But without thinking about it, without having the part of your brain activated that in that moment, it's like, oh, wait, hold on a second. We had actually made some plans that were more important to our lives and our families and our futures. We're going to go do that. You just jump in and get drinks with the guys and you go tumbling down a week of chaos, wondering why you're drinking more coffee and, you're eating more sugar that week.
Yeah.
Terrible decision. Happens in an instant.
Well, and I think in the culture we live in right now, it's easier than ever to get pulled down into distracted modes. And so I love the fact that you did write this book, because it's more necessary than ever. Our attention is just being pulled away and pulled away from ourselves, like you said so poetically. But so tell me, you do some of these 100-day challenges for yourself, and so tell me some of these exercises that you're doing to increase your focus.
Yeah, I started doing it with Qigong, I don't know, a couple decades ago, maybe 25 years ago. Had a lot more hair then, had hair then. And I just started doing it for myself. It's like, hey, you want to, do this Qigong, do it every day for 100 days. Don't miss a day or you start over, and develop the discipline of assembling your day around your needs so that you got the oxygen mask, so that you're taking care of you, so that you have the energy to take care of the world around you. And as I started doing that, I got better and better at it. I started, adding goals and just kind of adding things to be like, hey, I'm on a gong. It's 100 days, takes 90 days. I mean, we talk neuroplasticity is 21 days and up. 90 days tends to be the sweet spot for most habits to form. And so these 100-day gongs are great because it's every day you're 1% closer. Right. It's just a very good structure to put you on path for something you said you wanted for you, not me. I don't tell people what to do for their gongs. Now, what do I suggest? Meditation. I used to be kind of a meditation apologist, like everyone else is like, oh yeah, I'm going to tell you to meditate and I know you're not going to do it. So, go get some app and practice idolatry, right? No, go do your meditation. Don't rely on something outside of yourself to give you meditation. That's insane. And so I've become a lot more hardline when it comes to that and being like, yo, you want to do things that are good for you, that are proven to work, that are going to suppress NF-kappa B pathways and push NRF2 and do all these geeky things that we can talk about. You could do that, or you could sit around and complain about your life and wonder why, you haven't found the meditation app that's going to save your life. Like, it's insane. And so meditating and doing Qigong, it's just good hygiene. It's like mental flossing, right? If you don't floss, you will get cavities. If you don't mentally floss, you will develop belief systems and patterns and anxiety and all these things that people are complaining about, especially today, especially with a pandemic and election chaos and all stuff that's going on. You just need to do it. And so, look, I started just doing it myself. People are like, yo, what are you doing? Like, you look pretty good. Like your life's coming together. And I showed a few people, and then started, showing it to patients back when I was doctoring. And then I started showing it to students, and there's been like tens of thousands of people exposed to this work now, and people do it differently. And that's great. My whole thing with the community over the last 25 years is go do your gongs and, tell us what worked, because it's a body of work. It's like open source, right? It's like a body of work. And as it grows, we can learn from each other. And so there's thousands and thousands of people that have been practicing these 100-day gongs and coming back and being like, hey, I blew it on day 12. I forgot, I forgot I was traveling. It's like, well, don't do that next time, right? Focus, right? Get back on and learn why you made that mistake. Learn why you took your focus away from your life and fell off the horse. And those are the painful and more important lessons, right? It's easy to win and feel good about it. Falling off the horse and getting back on, that's where we grow.
And so what are some reasons why people get pulled off? I mean, in these 100-day challenges. I know for myself personally, I've made a lot of big commitments like exercise every day. I made that commitment years ago. I think it was 4 years ago now. I haven't missed a single day.
Good for you.
I do mindset morning, where I've got 5 minutes is all I give myself. I say, okay, meditate for 5 minutes every day. Usually it goes on longer than that, but I know if I can carve out 5 minutes, it's no problem. But what do you find what's the big reason that people fall off the wagon or get pulled away from these challenges?
I mean, just look around you, man. You name it, right? You turn on the news, it's sucking your attention right out. Oh my God, the world's going to end. My candidate's going to lose. They're going to take over. The world's over, right? I'm panicked. I go into my amygdala. I draw the blood out of my prefrontal cortex. Now I'm reactive. Now I'm, making bad food decisions. Now I'm nervous eating. Now I'm, doing whatever it is that I'm doing that it's an aberrant behavior because I'm coming from my animal brain.
Mm.
Sure, that's one of them. Guys coming into town saying, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. Mom getting sick, kids, coming home from school early. I mean, you look around you, the world is assembled around a, infinite amount of distractions to pull your attention out. Right. And some of them are very legitimate, things that do happen. People get in car accidents, kids get sick. I mean, things do happen. So how do you assemble your day and your life to understand that chaos is a governing principle and you have to maintain order within your own system and assemble your day around that? That's where the mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness isn't the 5 minutes. We, allot ourselves in the morning to be like, okay, check, I've been mindful, right? And then, go off and be unmindful the rest of the day, right? It's about establishing a habit of trying to remain mindful all day, 24/7. And so the example I use for this is we look at meditation and mindfulness almost like an app on our desktop. So, you're doing all these things, you got a bunch of windows open, things aren't working. And all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I'm feeling anxiety. Instead of smoking a cigarette, which is what I used to do, that guy said I should go meditate. And so, you double click meditation, you do some stuff, you feel a little better, you close it, you go back to 55 open windows and you wonder why you're still anxious. Oh, that meditation didn't work. That's just a wrong application of mindfulness, in my opinion, right? I think mindfulness is more like a virus checker. It's like part of the operating system, just constantly scanning and being like, yo, why did you just open Skype when you said you were going to be working on that document? Like, why are you in instant messenger? Why are you checking the election results 65 times in the last 3 minutes? Right? Like, get back to your
Count that
podcast.
fast. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It doesn't refresh that fast. Like, you're just not here. And so mindfulness is that operating system that's constantly saying, monkey, no. Monkey, no. What were you doing? What was your thing? Were you working on a document? Were you having dinner with your wife? Put your damn phone down.
Yeah.
Right? And that is also, and this is why it kind of goes full circle, because, okay, where does that come from? That comes from the part of your brain that's responsible for the negation of impulses, higher moral reasoning, rational thought. How do you develop that part of your brain? You meditate more. So it becomes this upward spiral of developing the part of your brain that allows you to stay more mindful throughout the day. And so it's not like a quaalude when life gets really like distracting and you're like, oh, I need to meditate off my panic attack. It's about lengthening that fuse so that you're always 3 or 5 steps ahead of any panic attack, right? You're just staying mindful. You're being very careful and curating the things that you allow that come in that would knock you off your perch.
Yeah. And have you noticed that, I mean, you have the environment around you and sometimes when you get in that mindful state, have you noticed that people want to pull you off of it? They want you to get on their vibrational level. They're kind of concerned that you're not stressed about things.
The Buddha called them hungry ghosts. And, there's really 2 kinds of ways to live life here on planet Earth. Either you drink horizontally, which is, hey, Regan, you seem to be really calm. Let me come over and like distract you with my crap, right? Let me come over and, you buy my stuff, read my thing, like my post, all the stuff that is drawing you out. Or a vertical feeder who aligns their spine, breathes down to their lower abdomen, stays in the parasympathetic nervous system, and is content and happy being alive and well in their own body.
Mm.
And so the horizontal feeding frenzy is happening all around us. It's, Don Juan called it a parasitic universe. And so if you allow your attention to get pilfered, your kids will do it, your mom will do it. It's just the way of three-dimensional reality. I don't make these rules, but the only way out is to draw your focus back in and become self-aware. In my Taoist tradition, we call it retroflexion, is turning the light of awareness inward to become aware of the inner state, and then holding that inner state in a place of peace and calm. And then everything around you will stop rippling like a crazy turbulent body of water, and then the pond stills.
Mm.
And then people, and this is the worst part about it, is then people look at you and be like, ooh, I want what he has. And they come and try to get it.
Right.
Instead of realizing that they can get it, the only place they can get it is inside themselves. They think now that they got to go get it from you because you got something that they want, right? And that's where the compassion of, someone on the path of enlightenment comes in, is to realize they can't help themselves. They're hungry ghosts because their attention is scattered outside of themselves.
Got it. And so I guess if we say, what are they hungry for? They're hungry for that connection, for that meaning. They're trying to fill the void. Is that why the
Yeah.
Buddha called them hungry ghosts?
Yeah. Yeah. They don't realize that everything they've ever been looking for is at the bottom of their next breath. And they're looking outside themselves for peace, for contentment. They want their peace, their happiness, someone to love them, someone to say that they're worthy. All these things that you have to get outside of yourself that are illusions and delusions.
Yeah.
When all that falls apart and you realize you're perfect right here in this living, breathing, peaceful, still moment, you're out of that game. And now you're playing in a whole different game. You're like in the economy of infinity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of the transactional economy of like, let me go get mine from
Yeah.
that guy.
Yeah. It's all transformational when you enter into the other energetic state. And one thing I appreciate about you, Pedram, is your ability to connect with a larger mission or larger purpose. You've done movies on environmental ism, your movie on prosperity. I mean, you've created a conduit where, I guess Taoist principles or mindfulness is easy to relate to. And so, how
That's
did you
hard.
get in? It's very difficult. Yeah, because I mean, you're kind of like the Lao Tzu, who's we're all looking at. He's this curious creature, right? If we just looked at you through that narrow lens, but what you do is you bring a level of humanity to the spiritual practice that I've never seen anyone do. And
Well,
so
thank you.
really appreciate that. And maybe for the listeners, maybe you could talk about your adventures in making movies.
Yeah. I mean, why make movies, right? Why leave the monastery, I guess, is the original fall, right?
There you
Which
go.
is,
That's the big one. Yeah. And
yeah,
you have
why leave the
kids now.
monastery?
You got all this chaos you created in your life. You could have just been at the monastery and have stayed nice and peaceful, but you're
That's
out
it.
here in the world.
I have to say, and this is my dharma, it's my path. This is no judgment or reflection on the people in the monasteries. There are some wonderful, beautiful people in these monasteries that are doing, holding it down energetically for the rest of us. To me, it felt decadent. I grew up in Los Angeles, California. I was watching these people from our world land up in these monasteries, hiding from the world,
Mm.
hiding from childhood trauma, hiding from parents that were assholes, hiding from bad decisions they made, just hiding, right? And it became a place where it's like, I now have a new spiritual identity and I'm reborn and, all my mistakes are absolved, but they weren't mining and healing and resolving a lot of those things. So I saw a lot of that, which was part of just, what I bore witness to. And it's also, man, I gotta say, Reagan, it's easy to be enlightened in the Himalayas, or at least feel like you are and feel good about it. Your job is very self-referential. It's about turning around and working on yourself and doing this work and meditating. And not to say it's easy in any way. Meditating sucks for 14 hours a day until it doesn't, right? And even then, you got to work through your stuff.
Mhm.
So I just got to a point where it just became abundantly clear. It's kind of like when Luke was like, "Hey, Yoda, I'd like to stay here, but my friends are dying. Like, I got to get in this X-wing and go save Han and Leia." I had one of those moments, right, where I was like, "Man, I hate this. This is a terribly inconvenient feeling right now, but I think I got to go back."
Wow.
And and all my teachers were like, yeah, man, you don't belong here. Like you've
Really?
gotten
They
what
do
you
it?
need out of here. Go
Mhm.
back. You speak fluent English. I was already a doctor of Oriental medicine when when I came to this. Go back to Los Angeles, California, and you are now an urban monk. And here's the buzzkill. You are going to now take on a family. You are going to live in the world, and you are going to be not an ascetic, but a householder. A householder's got bills. A householder has stress. A householder has drama. A householder has kids. A householder has all of it. And so I had to integrate back into the world of the people I was allegedly here to help and understand. I had $250,000 a month in overhead in my late 20s with my medical groups. And, Blue Cross decides to arbitrarily not pay you for 90 days. You understand cash flow, you understand.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like, now, okay, let's see if this stuff actually works. Right. Like, meditation sounds great. Be late on payroll in 2 hours and figure out where it's going to come from. And,
Right.
remember to keep under your breath. Now we know, that's where the rubber hits the road. And so when I started doing that and I got into medicine, just long story short, I felt, and you could probably relate to this better than most, is, when you're in the traditional medical model, and I made a very, very early blunder in taking insurance and being part of that. And then once you start taking insurance, you only get paid for diagnosis codes that they allow. So
Right.
I was only able to treat people once they were sick. It's like, and this is, in the early 2000s, there weren't that many prevention codes, right? And
Wow.
so I had to wait for people to break before I can ethically and professionally fix them, knowing that 99% of my training was to keep people from getting sick. So I'm in the MASH unit patching up a bunch of bloody bodies as fast as I can, and they're coming in faster than we can help them. And I
Yeah.
realized we were losing the information war. We were losing the propaganda war. Larry the Cable Guy is standing in front of a hot dog stand saying I could go ahead and eat like an idiot because Prilosec or whatever these things helps me with my, acid burps. And
Right.
I'm like, man, we are on the wrong side of
Mm.
this propaganda game. And I need to, if my stated goal is to help these people, I can either pretend like I'm, doing what I'm doing and, live out my life, or I got to play a bigger game. And I realized media was where I needed to be. And then I realized I knew nothing about media. So I had to learn it. I started making film. It's been a long journey, but again, if you're a martial artist and you understand that life is kung fu, I didn't for an instant allow myself to feel sorry for Pedram for being like, oh, well, that sounds too hard. It was like, giddy up. Now we're doing films.
Man. And so you just learned it. I mean, you
I just
just
learned it.
went one little step by little step by little step. And has it been difficult for you to leave the medical practice?
A little bit. I mean, it was more storefront ego stuff. You spend so much time developing your identity to keep shattering it. So it's
Mhm.
like, I worked really hard to become a doctor person. And so I hang out with other doctor people and then I interact with patient people and all these kind of storefront ego interfaces of who you think you are and who you work to be in this world. And then you just got to let it go and let it burn on the sacrificial altar of change and be like, oh, I don't do the doctor person thing anymore because now I'm doing this media person thing. But I'm also an author person. I'm also a dad person. And so you start to become very aware of all of the clinging you have to the identity to feel safe.
Um,
And I've just had to keep letting go of all those things and just being like, I don't know who the hell I am. I'm still working on it. But yeah, I don't see patients in a clinic anymore. Yeah, it took me a couple years to just kind of, not, it didn't make me sad because I was overwhelmed with the amount of work that was, on the other side, but it was just a weird place in, this part of you. that is constantly trying to define you. And so that need of the ego, and Castaneda calls it, the island of the tonal, and then there's the nawal, which is the everything, right? The nawal is very disorienting, right? It's like taking a bunch of LSD and spinning around. It's like, okay, now go find yourself. It's crazy. It's not comfortable, right? And people go to that place of nawal and don't come back. So how do you live in a world where you're constantly connected to that,
Right.
when the scared little boy inside of you keeps trying to find something to hold on to as a definition of self? Right.
We just need a hug. We just need,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly,
just,
man. I just tell me what to do, right? And that's the problem. That's where we are in humanity. It's just tell me what to do. Which politician's gonna like fix everything? Which doctor is gonna cure me of all my illness, right? Like which guru is gonna make my past go away? That's all just bullshit.
yeah. What are your thoughts? A lot of people are doing, plant medicines these days. Ayahuasca has gotten a really, I mean, it's been transformational for so many people and their consciousness. Some people have said that's, a shortcut to spirituality. It's not, they're not doing the real work. But what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it was Terrence McKenna that, when asked about ayahuasca,
Yeah.
said, "Man, that's no Saturday night kind of drug, right? Like you need
Oh,
to
yeah.
read 3,000 to 5,000 books before you start messing with that stuff."
Hmm.
Um, I have seen I mean, tremendous benefits from plant medicine used in the appropriate way clinically. We're doing a whole series right now on kind of this new psychedelic supported psychotherapy for war veterans and people who've had just stories that I can't even talk about. People raped by their fathers and brothers and all this. And I've seen unbelievable transformation in their lives using some of these plant-based substances in the right way. Caveat, in the right way. My problem is you hear about these idiots who are like, "Oh, I took a bunch of mushrooms and went to Disneyland and had a really terrible time." It's like, well, who in their right mind takes a bunch of mushrooms and goes to Disneyland and puts themselves in such a vulnerable position in a place where you're being an idiot and the cops are going to show up? Like, I just think that there's a lot of immaturity, and there's a lot of like party drug mentality. There's a lot of hubris. There's a lot of kind of faux spirituality in this like kind of Burning Man world. It's like, hey, let's go take a bunch of drugs and like, swing and let me sleep with your wife. It's like all that to me is just gross.
Yeah.
Sorry. All that to me is gross. Now,
Hmm.
you want to go find a shaman in Iquitos and dig deep and find the inner workings of your soul and release all the crap and come to this place of your God self and face the difficult feelings and emotions and things that you weren't willing to look at and grow. Giddy up. I'm all in. But if
Hmm.
you're going to go take a bunch of ecstasy and candy flip with some LSD and go to some party and dance all night and sleep with someone else's wife, please don't do that. Right. I just think that there's a very, very appropriate, healthy approach, whether it's traditional or through some of these kind of, new psychotherapy trials that are happening that are amazing.
Right.
And then there's a bunch of idiots out there banging each other's wives and like thinking that they're spiritual because they took a bunch of drugs. Right. And I think that's just bullshit.
Yeah. Oh, okay, great. I couldn't agree more. I've seen the same thing. I've seen that there's been some radical transformation. Some of my patients with PTSD that, I mean, it changed their life forever.
Oh,
And
it's like
it's,
it's a slam.
and
It's like anyone in the industry who's seen it is just like, I've never seen anything like it. This is the best I've ever seen. The results we're seeing crush anything we've ever had in psychotherapy or psychiatry.
right,
How do you not look at that as a
right.
scientist? How do you not look at that? That is absolutely, I think, the forward direction of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it'd be great. Maybe that would be one of the healing techniques we could use for any politician in our country is like, let's take you through an ayahuasca ceremony in the right way, have a shaman, have a real guide, a spiritual guide, and then that might lead us to a little more peace and prosperity. But maybe it's wishful thinking, but I think it could be very beneficial. And I know many people on the show today have, they've had their own transformations using some of the plant medicines, and I think our audience, I mean, we have a group that's just incredibly grounded, phenomenal people. So what's your biggest excitement right now?
It's going to sound dorky, but coronavirus has really given me an opportunity to be the dad and the husband my family deserves.
Mm,
You know, being off on a mission to, save the world and being
yeah,
gone 90 days a year on location, making these films and stuff. It's something that, yeah, it's like, okay, I could be proud of that. But being here to be here in the small moments that allow my daughter to know what a strong man in her life would look like, my son to know what a courageous move it would be to be, kind instead of bullying, and all these little things that make better humans. It's hard to do that from a Radisson halfway across the country while your kids are growing up, right?
um,
And so it's been a tremendous gift, allowing my life garden to flourish in all the areas instead of just career, which I don't, it's just dumb. It's just dumb. We let money and career overwhelm, right? Even if, it's like like I had all these rationalizations, I'm a mission-driven dude. I'm helping all these people. I've got all these fans that are like thankful. And then my son's pissed off because I'm never home, right?
yeah,
That's not work-life balance.
no. No, I had the same issue about 5 years ago. I've got 3 kids, and you've met my kids, and your kids are so cute. But yeah, and I was traveling every other weekend. I was on the road and I was teaching, and I was like, no, I'm helping people. I'm helping other practitioners. And finally, I said, you know what? If they can come to me, and so I'm in my teaching center right here, and I said, I want to be with my family, and it's been great. And with the lockdown, I mean, starting March 15th, it's been an incredible journey with my ever growing kids. I mean, it's been really exciting. So I'm happy you said it. It's not nerdy. It's like it's one of the most challenging things to do. I think just to be a father who's there, who's present, who's trying to influence their kids, because it's easier for us to just say, hey, take your phone and go go do some Snapchats with your friends, instead of like, hey, why don't we all sit down and read a book together, and let's talk about these ideas that this author is presenting. I mean, I find that's much more challenging, especially as my kids get older. They turn up their nose at some of dad's weird ideas of what we should be doing at night.
Well, especially if dad's a hypocrite. And dad's saying, you guys do this while I'm checking my Instagram feed,
Yeah,
right? And
exactly.
that's really where the rubber hits the road for all of us, is like, kids that read grew up in a household that was reading,
Yeah,
right? Kids that are addicted to screens, just look at what mom and dad are doing. And so this has really been a call to arms for us as parents to have absolute integrity in being present with them, because they could feel it, right?
yeah,
They could feel it. And so, I mean, to me, what a gift. What a gift being able to reconcile what we thought was important with what we said was important, right?
mhm,
And be
right.
the family men that you and I wanted to be, right?
Yeah. So I guess if you look at your experience over the last year, what surprised you the most about your ability to spend more time with your kids? What have you learned?
It's been as above, so below, right? So I'm writing this book on focus, and I'm finding all these places that are these dark alleys that my focus was being pilfered with, extreme rationalization. Like, I'm a CEO guy, I'm an author guy. Like, look how important dad is. Dad brings home the bacon. All that is just bullshit too,
Hmm.
right? And so all those little dark eddies and corners where, dad can rationalize doing the things that he does. Like, well, I can check my news feed on my phone 27 times a day because I do important adult stuff. But when you look at me and I'm in my phone and you realize that my phone in that moment is more important to me than you say, then give me a phone, because that seems to be what I should value.
Right.
Right.
So hard. Yeah.
Oh man, it's just
'Cause,
right in
we
the
got
kisser.
emails,
Just
we got texting, we got people we got to communicate with, Pedram. It's important, right?
that's it. Don't you know who I am? Like I'm the
No,
breadwinner, and
we're
all
the
that is,
boss. We're the boss. Yeah, come on.
yeah. Yeah. And like I locked that office door. I took over one of the bedrooms in the house, and here we are, right? And I locked
Mhm.
that office door knowing full well that if I need to go out for a cup of tea or, refill my water, I'm gonna get tackled.
Right.
And in
Yeah.
that moment, I could either be like, hey, blah, 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 or just stop whatever I'm doing and be 100% present and loving and be like, hey buddy, how's school going? Oh yeah, what are you doing? And just the 45 seconds it takes to just drop what you're doing and be there for them, to let them know that their dad is present and loving them and engaged in their day. And then, okay, I'll be back, versus, hey, like, don't you see I'm on a phone call? It just, all those little moments are what add up into whether or not they have a positive experience of work, of family, of dad, of all of it. Or, dad was too busy for me. Dad told me to go piss off, through body
Right.
language.
Yeah.
It registers, man. It registers. So it's been what a melting pot, a boiling pot of water, if you will, of working from home. And we're homeschooling, because I didn't like our school district, our school basically is mandatory masks all day long.
Right.
And I'm like, yo, I don't need them to grow up with that experience, right? Like, I don't want them to get coronavirus. I had one of my groomsmen died of coronavirus. Like, it's my wife's grandma died of coronavirus. Like,
Wow.
it's real. If you get it, and you are unlucky, you know what I mean? Like, one of the people who get it and get it bad, it's real, right? And so I'm like,
Right.
look, I don't want my kids to get it and bring it home and get my parents, infected or any of that. But at the same time, I don't want them to sit around with masks, like, huffing paint and like, having hypoxia all day.
Right.
So we're going to homeschool. And that's
Yeah.
what we've been doing. So like, literally, I got 2 Labradors, 2 kids, my wife, I got a lot of action in this house. And I got, 4 books and 7 films coming out. And I got a lot of, and I'm not allowed to feel important about it, because at the end of the day, they don't give a shit what dad does in here. They want to see their dad.
Yeah. And it's easy to forget. It's like, hey, look at all the work I've accomplished today, kids. And it's wild. So there's this displaced masculinity in our society. And I think you're just nailing it, because, I'm the same. I bring my ego into my house. And so I have to check myself. Last night I pulled into the garage. It was a very busy day. And I was like, what am I feeling like right now? And I was all amped up. We're doing a 100-day fat burning challenge for a group of people. And so I just finished teaching that. I was all amped up, and I'm like, okay, it's my date night with my wife. What does she need from me? Instead of, I don't want to go unload all the wins of the day and just talk about work. And so it takes some reflection. And I think writing a book on focus is the most important thing. But I think what's even more important than that is saying, okay, find your priorities first, and then the tools that you've provided in your book will help people stay connected to that priority, which, I think you beautifully said it, which is, those family relationships. Kids now, they need the foundation. And it also feeds you, right? I mean, you're getting that yin nurturing on your yang side, so you can be a better performer, better, you'll have better impact on society. You'll have more creativity when you're being nurtured by that other side of things.
That's it. I mean, look, you've been in clinical practice long enough to have heard enough of these stories where it's like, if you had your life garden and you have your career, your health, your family, your, passions and things that you want, and you see how someone's life garden gets crowded out by, say, career. So it's like, okay, you made a bunch of bucks, you have estranged children, you're on your second marriage, and you have 45 extra pounds and you're pre-diabetic. How is that a win in the whole garden? How is that not letting one plant overwhelm the rest, right? And I'm doing a project right now. We're finishing a film with Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was really profound for me in learning, how they came to this, because they came to this first and then they wrote the book, him and his wife. And, he's a controversial figure and he's, difficult to be around for some people. But I really think that his message was really profound in that they achieved financial freedom. Like, to me, growing up, it's like, okay, so how do you know when you're financially free? It's like, oh, do you have a Ferrari? Do you have a mansion? Do you have $100 million? Like, what are these dumb, like, abstract notions in life? And for him, it was like when your passive income exceeds your monthly nut. So at the point him and his wife became financially free was they had $3,000 a month in bills. And when they built passive income to exceed $3,000 a month, they bought their time back. Because now you can do whatever the hell you want. I'm going to hang out with my kids and play Lego all day because that money thing is solved. Now, if I want more doodads and things like in that architecture, then it's like, okay, I have to create an asset that creates enough passive income to pay for my toys. And I could decide to live bigger, and he encourages it and I encourage it, because why not enjoy life and, go to Italy for 3 months.
Yeah.
But when you understand that financial freedom is buying your time back from
Right.
your monthly bills and you're free, that takes all of that energy that goes into that like career part of your garden and just kind of reallocates it and is like, oh, hold on a second. What's more valuable? Buying that extra thing or having the space in my consciousness and the freedom to just sit here with my kids for an hour on a Tuesday and be there for them because he had an interaction with some kid at mountain biking that made him, upset,
Sure. Yeah.
right?
How powerful is
That's
that?
true wealth. To me, that is a rich man.
Yeah. Yeah. So for years, I didn't work on Tuesdays, and I was able to I was able to coach basketball for my kids. And I remember being out there, I'm like, you know how much money I could be making right now? And that was like the ego side of me, 10 years ago. And I was like, you know what? I got my freedom, and that's so much more valuable. But our society, no one wants to. I mean, they want us to go into deeper debt and have more bills to pay so that we work harder and we have more productivity. But, at the end of the day, if we can take a step back and create some freedom, I mean, what a gift. And then actually, if you have the freedom, one of my Zen teachers, she said the one true freedom we have is where we focus our attention. And so I was like, man, that's that's a freedom that we give away all the time. And so if we have these opportunities, and I'm going to encourage everyone, grab Pedram's newest book. Read all of his books. You're just a wealth of information. But man, if we could just refocus our attention and create a great life for ourselves, I mean, that's really what this is about.
Amen. I mean, look, you hail from Chinese medicine, right?
Mm-hmm.
The alchemical principle of Taoism is the attention is housed in the heart, or the shen, and intention is housed in the kidneys, the zhi. And
Yeah.
the fusion of attention and intention is really the formula for mastering life. We'll all bank up intent, but we'll scatter our focus and our lives will look chaotic. If you have the agency to bring your attention and focus back and stay conscious and stay awake and stay aligned, that's when you master life. And so for me, I did my dissertation as a monk on these alchemical principles. And I've spent the last 25 years of my life translating that into real speak English for people who are like, I don't know what the hell you did. Right. But I just need some help today. Right. And so it's been, translating that into real life speak is obviously not easy, but I mean, think about it. We trade our time and our energy for money all day. And so time, energy, and money is what I call the water for your plants. And you could allocate, one or the other, and it's an active exchange. But if you're not aware of where your time, energy, and money are going, and you're not careful about putting those on the things you say are important, you're always going to have bitterness and feel unfulfilled in life. If you start watering the plants that you say are important, you start to reap that harvest. It's not that complicated. We are just so scattered and our attention is being so pulled out in millions of directions that we can't even focus on our own priorities. If you can't focus on your own priorities in life, how the hell are you going to have a life that's meaningful or get what you say you want, right?
Yeah.
And so that to me is the first step for health, for all of it, is bringing your attention back and be like, why did I say I was going to do a 100-day fat burning challenge? And how do I have to remind myself that that's still important to me today?
Mm-hmm.
Because the TV just told me there's 27 other things that should be more important.
Right. And there's an election going on. I can't look away. I mean, there's just, yeah.
Just refresh. How many votes just came in Georgia? How many? It's insane, right? Like it's an addiction. And, yes, it means things, but just that is what we do with our Instagram feeds by design. It's what we do with our Facebook feeds by design. It's what we do when we check the basketball scores, or whatever that. Pick the addiction that you have and understand how your dopamine receptors in your brain are working to constantly feed that dopamine receptor, and understand that the work we're talking about to counterbalance it is more serotonergic. And, to go full circle, a lot of the drugs you were talking about, ayahuasca and psilocybin and all these, tend to be more serotonergic to wake up the spiritual axis. And having a balance between your spiritual axis and your go get 'em dopamine axis is a whole other show we could talk about later. But that's where the rubber hits the road. That's where fulfilled, happy, intelligent, rational, well-balanced humans live.
Yeah,
Right? And you got
love
to
it.
do the work. I cannot do it for you. I can't tell you, you got this every day of your life. Doctor, fix me. And they plop down on some treatment table and assume you're going to pull out some magic needle that's going to fix all their life's problems. And you're
Right.
like, yo, let's talk about the Dr. Pepper that was in your hand. Right? Like, I
You see
can't
that thing
stop that.
sitting on the table there? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
I
is
can't
wild,
stop
man.
that for you, dude.
No, and all businesses have been created around making people's lives easier to get to that instant gratification, that thing where you're just comfortable. And one of the things that I think is so important is a little discomfort in life, and being okay to set boundaries, and being okay to really have some bigger vision of your future, and then fighting for that. Because everyone's fighting for your time and your attention. And one of the things that I find with my wife, and I'm sure you've noticed this too, that if I can be incredibly focused on my work and what I feel like is really important to me, there's a nurturing aspect of that. And then when I can come home, if I can let that go and I can be present with her, everything's so much better. And then I can be a better father. I can connect with my kids. Their behavioral issues that inevitably show up, those things become a lot more tolerable, and I have a lot more compassion. So I think
Amen.
this conversation has been incredible, and I'll just some of the remarks that our audience, and I apologize, I didn't mean to leave you guys out of this. I was just so in enraptured by what we were talking about. But yeah, Lisa says, so refreshing to hear two men speak to the importance of being a husband and father. Thank you for shining a light on the work and joy of parenting. So appreciate you bringing that up, Pedram. So good, everyone. I'm here has an entirely new meaning. Bev said, "I'm here has an." I love that. Anne loved the formula for mastering life: attention plus intention. Awesome webinar. I really needed to see this. Thank you. Thank you for being on. Yeah. So this has been great. Really phenomenal conversation. Any final things that you'd like to share with the audience, or anything that we've missed today?
Just to kind of ride home on the point we were just making, which is, look, when you're at work, be amazing at whatever you're doing at work. Like if you're a guy selling cars on a car lot, you can either hang around and talk about politics or sports at the water cooler, pretend like you worked, go home and feel unfulfilled and not be present with your family. Or you could sell 12 cars, and feel good about your career, and then go home, close that window, and be the husband and the dad you want to be. At every stop on the journey, just be present and do what you're supposed to be doing in the moment that you're doing it, and block out all else and stay focused, right? And that's really the formula for mastery. Be 100% present with your 3-year-old daughter and play with dolls, and then be, the banker or the lawyer, and be really good at that, and just be able to change channels. Don't take yourself so seriously, and understand that your presence is what is going to command the outcome of what it is. So don't be scattered. Don't be scattered. And that all starts with bringing retroflexion, bringing the light of awareness back in, learning to focus your mind, developing the part of your brain that allows all that to happen. It's not that complicated, but it can't happen without personal involvement. You got to do the work.
You got to be there. Love it. Couldn't. I think that's a great way to finish. So grab a copy of Pedram's book. Focus is like a muscle. Learn to exercise it and gain life mastery. We've got links in the show notes here. We will also include those for the recorded version, the podcast that will be released tomorrow. So really appreciate you being on, Pedram. We got to do this again, and I look forward to seeing you soon up in the mountains.
Yeah, let's ski, man.
Awesome.
And then, let's be there. Great conversation. Thank you so much for the work that you do.
Appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Regan. Yep. Thank you.